everyone. Welcome back to another fun-filled lesson of Actual English with me, Jennifer Clyde. It is a pleasure to have you joining me as always. Now, today it's time for lesson 29, and let's talk about stomach aches. Little children have stomach aches too. Adults have stomach aches. We all tend to get stomach aches off and on, occasionally. Now, often when children, they have stomach aches, mothers and also fathers or even kids may say, "Mommy, Daddy, I have a tummy ache." It's the same thing as a stomach ache because tummy is just a cute way of calling stomach. So tummy aches, stomach aches. Let's talk about that. How often do you get stomach aches? As for me, not very often, but sometimes when I'm under a lot of stress or if I eat wrong, food that's maybe gone wrong, I do tend to get stomach aches. So it's when your stomach starts to hurt and you feel a pain in your stomach and you want to go to the bathroom. Okay, let's talk about that. As always, let's begin with a conversation between Peter and Rachel. Let's get started.
You know what's so convenient about Korea?
Everything.
I agree. But specifically, I think that what's so convenient are the pharmacies that are located at about every corner. And, you know, I eat out a lot, so sometimes I suffer from indigestion, and I can just go to a pharmacy right there, grab some medication, and alleviate that pain. At the pharmacy.
Yeah, even the corner stores sell some basic like indigestion drinks and remedies.
Right.
It's amazing. But I think in Korea, indigestion is a more common problem, almost like a run-of-the-mill everyday infection or disease that people get. But personally, I don't suffer from indigestion very often.
Oh, you have an iron immune system?
I think an iron stomach for indigestion, but stomach aches I do suffer from time to time. I think I'm quite sensitive to food poisoning.
Oh, okay.
Because even if me and my wife eat the same thing, like sometimes only I'll get sick and, you know, suffer from the normal symptoms like diarrhea and stomach cramps, and I'll have to go to hospital and not eat or just eat porridge for a day, and that's the worst.
Yeah, that's true. And they give you lots of medication too, right? If you have food poisoning and have stomach aches from that.
And the worst thing about it is you've got to eat really bland, flavourless food for a long period of time. That's why I hate getting food poisoning. It's not so much a stomach ache, it's just not being able to eat what I want.
It's the worst. Yeah, definitely. You know, I don't think I suffer a lot from stomach aches. Sometimes I do get cramps. And when that happens, I usually put either like a hot pad or like a heating pad around that area. And I drink lots of fluids too. I think that really alleviates the cramps.
Yeah, drinking lots of water is good for food poisoning as well. Like
to flush out your system.
Yeah, and then they say as well the best medicine is eating just organic, natural foods like lots of vegetables and things like that. Keep your digestive system like moving.
Right. I think we're experts on fixing stomach aches now.
Yes.
Today in Actual Talk, Peter and Rachel were talking about stomach aches, which happens to be our topic for the day. Sometimes they do suffer from indigestion. Sometimes we all may suffer from food poisoning and stomach aches for all different reasons. But what did they mention? They talked about having to go to the bathroom, often having diarrhea. And Peter even mentioned a few things when it comes to eating when you're not feeling so well. He talked about having porridge for a few days or even not eating for a few days as well. Anyhow, let's take a look at the actual talk together, line by line. Now, first of all, Rachel began by asking, you know what is so convenient about Korea? Well, Peter says everything, which I would have to agree. I think everything is so convenient in Korea. But what was Rachel trying to say? She says, I agree, but specifically, okay, she's focusing on something, especially the pharmacies that are located at about every corner. So she's talking about the convenience of living in Korea, especially or specifically because there are so many pharmacies where at about every corner, at almost every corner, okay? At every corner of the street is probably what she was saying, but that part was omitted. This means everywhere. There are lots and lots of. There are many pharmacies. Another word for pharmacy is drugstore, a place you go to get medication, often over-the-counter medicine or prescription drugs as well. Now, she says, I eat out a lot, so sometimes I suffer from indigestion, and I can just go to a pharmacy right there, grab some medication, and alleviate that pain. So let's take a look. Now, she's talking about how she sometimes suffers from indigestion, and she can just go to a pharmacy or a drugstore to get medication. Now, grab some medication or medicine and alleviate that pain. Alleviate means to lessen, to mitigate, okay, to get rid of. Not 100%, but perhaps to lessen the degree of something, to alleviate. And then Peter says, even the corner stores. Now, corner stores are, of course, stores, but they're rather small-scale stores, not large ones, but rather small stores. They sell basic indigestion drinks and remedies. So, if you go to these small stores, they will sell indigestion drinks and indigestion remedies. Now, we've taken a look at the word remedy or remedies quite often. This is another word for cure or cures. So he's saying you can get basic medicine for indigestion at these small corner stores. It's amazing, but I think in Korea, indigestion is almost like a run-of-the-mill everyday infection or disease that people get. Let's take a look at that sentence. Okay. Now he says, in Korea especially, indigestion is almost like a run-of-the-mill. It's almost equal to run-of-the-mill. Run-of-the-mill. Take a look at the word M-I-L-L. It's another word for factory. So run-of-the-mill basically means something that is not so special, meaning ordinary, okay? So he's saying indigestion is very common. It's nothing special. It's of the ordinary. It's like an everyday infection or disease that people get. So shortly put or simply put, he's saying in Korea, indigestion is very common among people, okay? Now, but personally, I don't suffer from indigestion very often. So he's saying I don't get indigestion very often. Now, Rachel says, oh, you have an iron immune system. Now, iron here, of course, we are talking about the kind of metal. What is iron like? It's very hard and sturdy, right? So iron immune system or iron something means a very strong something. So she's saying, oh, you have a strong immune system. Now, immune here means protective, okay? So she's saying you have a very strong immune system. And Peter says, well, I think an iron stomach. Now, much more than an iron immune system, this expression you will bump into quite often. If you don't get sick very often, especially even if you eat food that is not so fresh, and if you don't get a stomachache or get food poisoning, people say that you have an iron stomach, a very strong stomach. So if you have an iron stomach, once again, you will not end up getting a stomachache or food poisoning very easily. He says, I think an iron stomach for indigestion, but stomachaches I do suffer from time to time. From time to time means, well, off and on, occasionally, sometimes, okay? Now, I think I'm quite sensitive to food poisoning. If you are sensitive to something, it means that you are affected by it very easily. So I am sensitive to food poisoning, so it means I get food poisoning quite easily, okay? Because even if, he's giving an example, okay, even if me and my wife, well, grammatically you should say my wife and I. The I should go later, okay? But Peter said, but even if me and my wife eat the same thing, sometimes only I will get sick and suffer from the normal symptoms, such as or like diarrhea, okay? And what else? Stomach cramps. So he's saying, I get diarrhea, I also get stomach cramps. You get a cramp in your stomach, it's not a good feeling, meaning stomach pain, okay? I have to go to the hospital and not eat or just eat porridge for a day, and that's the worst. It's the worst, meaning he hates that part about it. So when he gets indigestion or food poisoning, yes, he often has to go to the hospital, or he has to starve or not eat anything, or eat porridge for a day. Porridge, I think the closest word to porridge in Korean is chuk. Okay, we'll take a look at that word later on. And then Rachel says, and they give you lots of medication too. Now, did you notice medication? Lots of, but there is no S. You would never say medications, always in the singular form, medication. Even if you have to take 10 pills, okay? Never say medicines or medications unless you are talking about a different kind of variety or variety of medication or medicine, okay? You have to, or they give you lots of medication, right? And then Peter says, yes, and you've got to eat really bland, flavorless food for a long period of time. So he's talking about the kind of food that you have to eat. Number one, you have to go to the hospital. They will give you lots of medication. Number two, you have to eat bland, flavorless food. What is bland? Bland is another word for mild. Some kind of food that is not really flavored, okay? So 싱거운, 슴슴한, okay, or 심심한, right? 간이 많이 되어 있지 않은 음식. You want to say bland food, okay? So it's bland, mild food, or flavorless, so food that really has no flavor. Now, it is not so much the stomachache. It's just not being able to eat what I want. Now, this pattern here, he's talking about what he doesn't like about it. The first part, it's not just so much. It's not so much the stomachache. He's saying the stomachache is not really a big problem, but what is a problem is not being able to eat what I want. I hate that. That's what he's saying, all right? Now, Rachel says, you know, sometimes I get cramps. And when that happens, I usually put a heating pad around that area, okay? Now, Rachel did mention heating pad. It can be called a heating pad or a hot pad or a heat pad, okay? Okay, it's usually like a little, I don't know, it can be made of rubber or anything like that where you put hot water in it and you put it on the area that you feel pain, okay? So she's saying when I get the cramps or when that happens, I usually put a heating pad or heat pad around that area. I drink lots of fluids too. I think that really alleviates the cramps. Once again, we did take a look at the word alleviate before. Here it's used with the ES, alleviates. Once again, it means to lessen, okay, lessen. Moving on, Peter says, yeah, drinking lots of water is good for food poisoning as well. They say it's one of the best medicines. What is one of the best medicines? Eating just organic or natural foods, such as lots of vegetables, also to keep your digestive system moving. That's right. It's very important for you to let your digestive system, your intestines and your stomach constantly moving, right? So that is exactly what he's saying. You know, they say, this refers to people in general. People often say, I have heard from many, many people that one of the best medicines is eating just organic or natural foods, perhaps lots of vegetables, to keep your digestive system moving. Okay, and that about wraps it up for today's actual talk. There is more information in the actual conversation, so check it out once again, everyone.
You know what's so convenient about Korea?
Everything.
I agree. But specifically, I think that what's so convenient are the pharmacies that are located about every corner, at about every
Sure.
corner. And I eat out a lot, so sometimes I suffer from indigestion, and I can just go to a pharmacy right there, grab some medication, and alleviate that pain
Yeah.
at the pharmacy.
Yeah, even the corner stores sell some basic like indigestion drinks and remedies.
Right.
It's amazing. But I think in Korea, indigestion is a more common problem, almost like a run-of-the-mill everyday infection or disease that people
Right.
get. But personally, I don't suffer from indigestion very often.
Oh, you have an iron immune system?
I think an iron stomach for indigestion, but stomach aches I do suffer from time to time. I think I'm quite sensitive to food poisoning.
Oh,
Because
okay.
even if me and my wife eat the same thing, like sometimes only I'll get sick and suffer from the normal symptoms like diarrhea and stomach cramps, and I'll have to go to
Right.
hospital and not eat or just eat porridge for a day, and that's the worst.
Yeah, that's true. And they give you lots of medication too, right? If you have
Sure.
food poisoning and have
Yeah.
stomach aches from that.
And the worst thing about it is you've got to eat really bland, flavorless food
Yeah,
for a
that's
long period of
true.
time. That's why I hate getting food poisoning. It's not so much the stomach ache, it's just not being able to eat what I want.
It's the worst. Yeah, definitely. I don't think I suffer a lot from stomach aches. Sometimes I do get cramps. And when that happens, I usually put either like a hot pad or like a heating pad around that area.
Yeah.
And I drink lots of fluids too. I think that really alleviates the cramps.
Yeah, drinking lots of water is good for food poisoning as well. Like
To
the
flush
doctor
out your
always tells me.
system.
Yeah, and then they say as well the best medicine is eating just organic, natural foods like lots of vegetables and things like that. Keep your digestive system like moving.
Right. I think we're experts on fixing stomach aches now.
Yes.
Now I'd like you to kind of relax your muscles, sit back and take a look at some vocab words, and let's jump over to some patterns that you can make use of when talking about today's topic or any other topic. Here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vocab words. Pharmacy, first of all. Another word for it is drugstore or dispensary as well. It's quite easy to pronounce. Pharmacy, pharmacy, or alleviate. This word is very important. We already saw it twice in today's actual talk. Alleviate means to lessen or to mitigate, which also means to lessen. Okay? Alleviate, alleviate. Iron stomach, what does that mean? A very strong stomach, right? So, iron stomach is the way you pronounce it. It's not iron, it's iron, iron. Iron stomach. Also, diarrhea, just in case. The stress goes right there, so it's diarrhea. Diarrhea. A slang for diarrhea is the runs. So you may maybe talk to your friends about having diarrhea. You can say, oh, I have the runs. I have the runs, which means I have diarrhea. Just keep it in mind. And one more, porridge. Porridge. Peter mentioned that sometimes if you have food poisoning or a stomach ache, you may have to have porridge for a few days, right? So porridge. Porridge, stress goes on the first syllable, and some other words are gruel or even pottage. Okay? It's often cereals or grains or even rice in Korea that is often boiled in water or even milk. So that's called porridge. 죽. Here are some patterns. From time to time, once again, it means occasionally, not very often, but it does happen sometimes, from time to time. I get stomach aches from time to time, which means I sometimes get stomach aches. Not very often, but I do sometimes get stomach aches. Let's practice this sentence 2 times. I get stomach aches from time to time. I get stomach aches from time to time. Good job. One more. From time to time, let's bring it to the beginning. I'm bothered from back pain. Bothered? Bothered from, it means that you are not liking the experience. You have back pain. I am bothered from back pain. So once again, bringing from time to time to the beginning. Let's do it one more time. From time to time, I'm bothered from back pain. From time to time, I have back pain. Another pattern is eat or drink something for a time duration. You can eat porridge for several days, for example, right? Here is a sample sentence. I ate nothing but porridge for 2 days. I ate nothing but porridge, meaning I only ate porridge for 2 days. Another one. I had to drink ginger tea for a week. Okay? Now break the sentences up if it's hard to understand. Make it simple. Make it easier for you to understand. I had to drink ginger tea for a week. For how long? For a week. For 2 days. For a month. Good job. Okay, and our final pattern, here we go. Verb plus ing. Doing something is good for so and so. Here are 2 sample sentences. The first one is, we've got 3 for you. Drinking a glass of wine. Okay, drinking here, let's take a look. Drinking a glass of wine each day is good for mental health. One more time. Drinking a glass of wine each day, meaning every day, is good for mental health. Another one, eating. Okay, here we go. Eating yogurt is really good for stomach aches. I learned this too as I was preparing today's lesson. I heard that eating yogurt is really good for stomach aches. And one final sample sentence. Sleeping, also keep in mind in the verb and the ing form, sleeping on your side is good for back pain. Sleeping on your side is good for back pain. I heard that getting good sleep at night, sleeping well at night, helps actually back pain. So if you do happen to have back pain, everyone, sleep well and try to sleep on your side as well. Okay, that is a wrap for today's actual expressions.
Bodies are complex, and lots of things can go wrong with them. And, I'm sorry to tell you, but you often won't know why, especially for small aches and pains, things like stomach aches. I get stomach aches. In fact, I bet everybody alive gets stomach aches sometimes. So, everybody has different remedies to cure them. I myself try to avoid stuff like milk or barley. There are other ways to cure them as well. Some people like to eat bland things, maybe avoid spicy foods. That works sometimes. Some people like to make sure they eat lots of starch, bread and stuff like that. It sometimes works too. Even things like stretching, getting enough sleep, not drinking coffee, if you do, not drinking more acidic foods, avoiding lemon juice, stuff like that, that can work too. One of the best ways I've found, though, don't be hungry. Being hungry always hurts my stomach.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Did you enjoy today's actual story by Joe? I think he does a wonderful job in telling us about his own experience, telling us his story. Today, he focused on stomach aches, right? Yeah, I guess everyone does. We all get stomach aches from time to time. So let's check out the points he mentioned in today's actual story. He said, I get stomach aches. I get stomach aches. If you have a stomach ache right now, you would say, I have a stomach ache. But in general, people get stomach aches. So he says, yeah, I get stomach aches. Everybody has different remedies to cure them. Once again, a remedy or remedies, we're talking about cures, okay? Another one, I try to avoid stuff such as milk or even barley. Now, this is his own remedy. He's telling his story. So he says when he gets a stomach ache or before, well, in order to prevent himself from getting a stomach ache, he tries to avoid things such as milk or barley, which means if he drinks milk or perhaps barley tea, he often gets stomach aches. Now, some people like to eat bland things. We take a look at that word. This word means what? Very mild, okay? Mild things, mild food. Maybe avoid spicy foods. That's right. Spicy foods, yeah, sometimes not very good. So, another one, stretching, getting enough sleep, not drinking coffee, and also avoiding lemon juice can work too. So he's mentioned a few things. Here, stretching can help. Getting enough sleep can help. Not drinking coffee, that is if you do, and also avoiding lemon juice can work too. Okay, so he's talking about things that could perhaps help, okay, in order to prevent yourself from getting a stomachache. One last one. He says, one of the best ways I have found, he's talking about his personal experience, don't be hungry, okay? Do not be hungry, because being hungry always hurts my stomach. So he's giving, once again, a final, example of his own experience. He says, well, I always get sick, or I always get a stomachache if I'm hungry. So everyone out there, well, don't be hungry. Eat something. Don't starve yourselves. Okay, that was today's actual story, everyone. Hope you learned a lot and enjoyed it. Let's have a listen to it one more time.
Bodies are complex, and lots of things can go wrong with them. And I'm sorry to tell you, but you often won't know why, especially for small aches and pains, things like stomach aches. I get stomach aches. In fact, I bet everybody alive gets stomach aches sometimes. So, everybody has different remedies to cure them. I myself try to avoid stuff like milk or barley. There are other ways to cure them as well. Some people like to eat bland things, maybe avoid spicy foods. That works sometimes. Some people like to make sure they eat lots of starch, bread and stuff like that. It sometimes works too. Even things like stretching, getting enough sleep, not drinking coffee, if you do, not drinking more acidic foods, avoiding lemon juice, stuff like that, that can work too. One of the best ways I've found, though, don't be hungry. Being hungry always hurts my stomach.
So what did you think about today's lesson, everyone? Did you learn a lot? The whole idea is to have fun with English. We've been getting messages from a lot of our viewers. Thank you to all of you. And I have been getting lots of messages about getting stressed or being stressed about having to learn so much, having to memorize so much. But I always respond by saying, don't stress about learning English. Don't stress about having to memorize everything. Take it step by step, little by little, take baby steps, and perhaps focus on maybe learning or memorizing 1 or 2 words from each lesson, okay? That's good enough. The point is to have fun with English, everyone. Okay, so today we talked about getting stomach aches, right? So if you tend to get stomach aches from eating spicy foods or even acidic foods, what you can do is avoid having spicy foods or acidic foods. Try eating bland food, everyone. Okay? Next time, I'll return with another topic related to our health and getting sick. Let's talk about the flu. Not just a simple cold, but the flu, known as 독감 in Korean. In the meantime, come to our homepage, find your way over to www.ebse.co.kr and look for Actual English with Jennifer. Leave us a few comments and a few questions if you have any. That's all for today. Thanks for joining me. I'll catch you again next time. Bye, everyone.